it is my honour, it is my privilege to introduce to you a man who is dedicated to the well-being of others, Mr. Hassan Ali Bin Ali.
Your Highness Sheikh Hamouza bint Nasser, Your Royal Highness Prince Murad bin Raad, First Ladies, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 5th International SHAFALLAH Forum. The theme of this year's forum is Crisis, Conflict and Disability, Ensuring Equality. At a breakfast meeting held at the last SHAFALLAH Forum, graciously hosted by Her Highness Sheikh Hamouza, attended by First Ladies Sir Philip Craven and I, Her Highness asked, what more can we do that would make a real difference to persons with disabilities on a global basis, with the emphasis on the implementation of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. In response to Her Highness's request, I felt that we should build upon our unique association with First Ladies, using their insight, opportunity, and aptitude to influence policy at the very heart of government and decision-making. Subsequently, we have formed a Geneva-registered non-governmental organization and through it launched a global initiative named 1 Billion Strong, a global initiative dedicated to disability, awareness, rights, and education. By way of background to our choice of the name, 1 Billion Strong, the World Health Organization's 2011 report estimates that there are now over 1 billion persons with disabilities in the world. That is a staggering number. Persons with disabilities now represent a proportion of the world's population that is 1 billion strong. When you think about that number alone, how many people that is, the world needs to know the statistics. That persons with disabilities are not only 1 billion strong in the number of people they represent, but 1 billion strong in the sense of what this many people can achieve and contribute to the world. However, of those 1 billion, 800 million live in poverty, and in essence, they are imprisoned by that poverty. 1 billion strong, as well as education, awareness, and rights components, has a series of core programs, one of which importantly relates to persons with disabilities who are refugees. As part of that program, my team very recently visited refugee camps in Uganda and Palestinian refugee camps in Jordan and in Lebanon. We have launched 1 Billion Strong as a global initiative to promote the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and to try and make a real difference to the lives of persons with disabilities. To date, 153 countries have signed the convention and 109 have ratified it, which at face value sound impressive, but is it? Are persons with disability, especially the 800 million that live in poverty, really experiencing the benefit of the provisions of the Convention? In my opinion, very few do. Our brief experience thus far, working with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, the Women's Refugees Commission, the Refugee Law Project of Uganda, and the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, enforces and underlines the fact that refugees and disabled persons with a disability are amongst the most disadvantaged and disenfranchised of all people living in the world today. There are estimated to be over 6.5 million of them. Most refugees with disability live in abject poverty, and in reality, there is a huge disconnect between the conditions in which they live and the opportunity to even begin implementing their numerous legal rights under the provision of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Many of the countries that have signed and ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities have neither the financial and human resources nor expertise to properly implement the provisions of the Convention. You will see shortly extract of a short film titled Between a Hard Place and a Rock, recently released about refugees with disabilities in Uganda, and a film that highlights some of the problems facing Palestinian refugees with disabilities. I would imagine it will possibly shock you, simply because it portrays the despair and desperation of their lives without hope or a future. I have thought long and hard about how 1 billion strong, and indeed all of us, can make a real difference to their lives. I believe we have to address the issues they face because of disability, but also the issues they face because of poverty. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, if signed and ratified by a nation, demands access to health care, education, employment, and all other fundamental rights. In countries where resources are not available to accommodate the provision of these fundamental rights for persons with disabilities and even the rest of the population, then you can guarantee that persons with disabilities will be considered lost. Awareness of this convention is paramount. The true implementation of this convention is paramount. But for those living in abject poverty, whose main preoccupation is the daily struggle to have enough food to eat, the realization of the rights laid out in the Convention are a word away from reality. True and meaningful implementation of this Convention, dependent upon governments, the people with the real influence to bring about change. Change that regards persons with disabilities as equals to every other member of the population. With the huge number of persons with disabilities living in poverty, where do you begin to help them? Where do you focus your limited resources? We need to make sure that money, resources, and required services get directly to them. But it is not just a question of giving them money. It is much more than that. It is about ensuring equality. It's about ensuring access to resources and services that guarantee their rights are realized. So, 800 million persons with disability spread throughout the world, living in poverty, and approximately 6.5 million of those are refugees or displaced persons. A positive impact of their lives, in my view, cannot be addressed without the sustained help of local, national, and international media. The facts and issues surrounding persons with disability must become a sustained, mainstream, global media focus. I'm acutely aware that all areas of the media do not like to write about, broadcast, or publicize disability issues. The subject is perceived to be depressing, negative, and far from profitable, since who would support and advertise on any media formats covering such subjects? I was fortunate enough to attend the Beijing Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2008, and I must say that the Paralympics was a staggering success, the best ever, and all the stadiums were full. That said, I do query why over 50% of the broadcasters that broadcast the Olympic Games chose not to cover the Paralympics, which to me were as exciting to watch and as competitive as the Olympic part of the Games. I firmly believe that if the world's governments and general public were made aware of the plight of persons with disability living in poverty, then they would respond in a positive way and provide help in any way they could and within their capability. The creation of such awareness, changing perceptions, and educating the world general public about these issues will take years, even decades. So it's important the media's participation is sustainable and fully supported. Example of where the media has been instrumental and successful in bringing about change for the better are apartheid in South Africa, the Black Civil Rights Movement in the USA, and global awareness around HIV/AIDS. The issues surrounding persons with disabilities are undoubtedly the most forgotten and ignored issues of our time, yet they are amongst the most important and relevant. After all, these issues directly affect over 1 billion people living on this planet, and that is not to mention the people connected to them like family and friends. To do nothing substantial about this issue is not an option. If you were to walk down any main street in any major city in the world, including Doha, and ask people the question, have you heard of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the legal rights it gives persons with disability? The response of the majority would be that they have never heard of it. And even if they had, it would not be a priority for them, given the many challenges of everyday life, particularly now we are in the midst of a world economic recession. I call on the world's media to take on the challenge of making the issues facing persons with disabilities mainstream. I call on them to make their content inclusive and for them to create awareness, to educate and acknowledge the rights that persons with disabilities now possess. The organization we have created, 1 billion strong, is dedicated to making this a reality. There may be some obstacle in the way for making it mainstream and sustainable, but let us clearly identify the obstacles and resolve them quickly. You never know. One of the global media organizations may consider that a potential market for over 1 billion strong is worth entering and unifying. Imagine the possibilities. Thank you for your kind attention, and let's all join together at this forum to make a real, sustainable difference to the lives of persons with disabilities everywhere. Thank you.